fellow councillors, staff and residents viewing via live stream. Good morning all and welcome. I acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of the land on which this meeting is being held and pay my respect to the elders, past, present and emerging. Would you please all be upstanding as Father Matthew delivers the opening prayer.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Reading from the Holy Gospel according to Saint Matthew. Jesus said, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Search, and you will find. Knock, the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and everyone who searches finds. For everyone who knocks, the door will be opened." Lord Jesus, we are gathered here to invoke your presence and blessing, especially on our mayor and all the councillors. Lord Jesus, we know that it is your blessing gives us strength, protection, and safety. We pray in the context of the pandemic, Lord, heal all the people in the world and our people here. And we have you as a God. We are asking you, Lord, for your blessing and grace upon everyone. Pray for our council here. Bless their decisions and everything they ask for. My message and Jesus' message for you today: put God first in our life and trust in Him. We are safe. Lord, we pray together for our council and our people in the world who are in need of your blessings. Let us pray together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. May Almighty God bless you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you for your welcome. Keep you in prayer. Father.
Do we have any apologies, councillors? Take that as a no. Material personal interest, conflicts of interest. Please use this opportunity to make public any material personal interests and or conflicts of interest, real or perceived, in respect of the items in the agenda. Councillors should use this opportunity to disclose and or comment on any other councillors and or staff interests in accordance with the Act and the regulations. Are there any conflicts to be declared, councillors? Take that as a no, thank you. We have a direction for the CEO in regards to future meetings that are being live streamed due to the COVID-19. Councillors and members of the public viewing via live streaming. Since my last instruction to the CEO as to the closure of our meetings to the public and the need for live streaming, it has become apparent that demand by the public to use this level 4 of the Shire Hall, is increasing. Previously, we did not have sufficient bandwidth in Tully to allow live streaming to occur. However, the IT team have taken up the challenge and found a solution for us. I am still concerned that relaxation of travel restrictions in Queensland and the most unfortunate new COVID-19 outbreaks in Victoria and New South Wales will continue to place pressure on Council's ability to protect the public if Council allows personal attendance upon Council meetings. As I have previously observed, live streaming meetings with absolute transparency continues to demonstrate that the public viewing of meetings is vastly greater than previous viewing in person. I am satisfied that it is still not practicable for the public to attend our meetings because of health and safety reasons associated with the public health emergency involved with COVID-19. However, given we have our Tully facility capable of live streaming, I hereby instruct the Chief Executive Officer to close all meetings until, at the earliest, the end of December 2020. I do this on the basis that meetings will, commencing next meeting, be conducted from the Tully venue with appropriate sanitation procedures and physical distancing in place on the basis that the meetings be live streamed. Mr. CEO, please ensure that this decision is duly published on our website in accordance with the Local Government Electoral 2020 Quadrennial Election Regulation 2020. I note that councillors and staff from the southern part of our region have been travelling to Innisfail for some months now, and I believe it is only fair that this situation now be reversed.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that'll occur.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. We move on to the first item on the agenda, confirmation of the minutes. Would somebody move that the minutes of the budget meeting be confirmed as a true and accurate record? Moved by Councillor Dewey, seconded by Councillor Millwood. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Move on to the minutes of the local government meeting dated 9th of July. Would somebody move that they would be a true and accurate record? Moved by Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Any business arising from any of those minutes, councillors? Take that as a no. We move on to item 3, governance and environment and finance. Item 3.1, the review of the procurement policy. Mr. Vick.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and councillors.
Morning, Mr. Vick.
Through the chair. So this morning I'm presenting the procurement policy, which is an annual review carried out. That coincides with the local government regulations, which require the council to review its policy annually. Council's current procurement policy was reviewed and adopted in June 2019, and council has indicated that one of its key objectives is the proactive support of local business to ensure jobs in the Cassowary Coast region. This revised policy is intended to simplify the policy with the creation of a procurement procedure to provide clarity in relation to procurement activity undertaken and to ensure the development of local competitive suppliers directly supporting and contributing to the development of the Cassowary Coast economy. So the Council has a requirement under the Local Government Act to ensure financial sustainability and shows regard for sound contracting principles when entering into a contract for the supply of goods or services and the carrying out of work. The sound contracting principles are as follows: value for money, open and effective competition, the development of competitive local business and industry, environmental protection, and ethical behaviour and fair dealing. The review of this policy is undertaken as a requirement under the Act and the regulation, and to take into consideration Council's position in relation to purchasing locally, wherever possible. The intent of the Buy Locally objective is to boost opportunities for local businesses when Council procures goods and services and the carrying out of work. So we've updated the policy from previously, it was 2 pages to 10 pages, and we've done a lot with the thresholds, which I'll touch on in here. So when we go out to quotation, so purchases valued at less than $1,000 to attain at least one quote. Purchases valued at greater than $1,000 and less than $3,000 is to get 2 verbal quotations. Purchases valued at greater than $3,000 and less than $15,000, there's at least 2 verbal quotations and written confirmation. Purchases valued at greater than $15,000 and less than or equal to $200,000 seek at least 3 written quotations. Anything above $200,000 will be going out to tender, and we have set a new threshold for the 10% margin that we include for local businesses at $1 million. Anything over $1 million, we actually change that threshold to a review to incorporate those thresholds. That is about all I have at the moment for the procurement policy. Is there any questions? Yes.
Councillor Barnes.
Yes, thank you very much. Through you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like local contractors and business people to realise that this current council has done a very thorough workshop on what you were just speaking about, and I think each and every one of us are very aware and are going to be very conscientious in going through with a fine-tooth comb on the local content of a lot of businesses. Just because they own or just because they rent a little warehouse in an industrial state, in my eyes, don't really make them local. So I'd just like to let the general public be aware that we are very aware of local content. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Any further questions for Mr Vick? Okay, would somebody move the recommendation that the report be received and Council adopt the revised procurement policy? Moved by Councillor Dewey, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Through the chair, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Vick.
Mr Mayor.
Move on to item 3.2, the monthly council reporting package, and Ms Bradley will deliver this report.
Good morning, councillors.
Good morning.
So this morning we have our monthly council reporting package. So this is our interim report for the month of June. As it's end of financial year, there's still transactions being processed and end of financial year adjustments being undertaken. So these figures aren't the hard and fast figures that will be reflected in our annual report. So I just wanted to reiterate that. So the performance report attached provides a detailed analysis of council's year-to-date revenue and expenditure across all departments, including various statistical information provided within. As I mentioned, the finance team's currently finalising figures for the auditors for the audited financial statements, so these figures will change between now and when they're adopted. So the end of month cash balance at the end of June was 37.36 million. Operational revenues at 93.26 million, which is 413,000 under budget in comparison to the full year budget of 93.68. So 99.5% of our revenue's been received. Operational expenditure is at 94.85 million, which is 1.19 million over budget in comparison to our full year budget of 93.67. So we're at 101% of expenditure for the year. Capital expenditure for the month totaled 3.09 million. Year-to-date capital expenditure, including commitments, totals 57.7 million, which is 67% of our full year budget excluding commitments and 80% including commitments. So in the interim report, the first page is our summary of financial results, with the cash operational results sitting at 25.3 million, which is 921,000 under budget. Net result before capital sitting at a deficit of 1.56 million versus the full year budget of a small surplus of 11,000, so we're 1.57 million behind budget, giving us a total net result including our capital revenue at 3.7 million profit, with a year-to-date budget was at 21.7 million, so there's some variances with timing of particularly capital revenue you'll see as we go through the detail. Page 3 is Council's balance sheet as at the 30th of June. So total assets when this report was run totaled 1.23 billion. Total liabilities were sitting at 29.7 million, giving us total community equity at 1.201 billion. Cash flow on page 4. So for the month of June, we had net outflows from operating activities at 2.9 million. We had net outflows of investing activities at 5.4 million, so that's our capital works. And then we had a decrease in cash and cash equivalent held totalling 5.4 million, giving us the closing cash balance of 37.4 million. Page 5 gives details on the net rates and utilities. At the 30th of June, it totaled 65.89 million versus a year-to-date budget of 66.04, so 154,000 behind budget. So water consumption, end of financial year revenue movement, adjustment journal still needs to be processed once the data is available, and the final read is estimated to be around 200,000 increase in that revenue as a result. And water consumption volumes still remain below budget throughout the year. Underneath that, we have our rate arrears, which haven't been updated in this report because the figures weren't available at the time when this was run, but they'll be updated and provided with the next council report. Page 6 is details on fees and charges. So year-to-date actuals were sitting at 2.57 million with a year-to-date budget of 2.65 million, so 83,000 behind budget. So the closure of council facilities during COVID-19 government mandated closures have resulted in that decrease, offset by increased waste fees at our transfer stations account for that variance. Grants and contributions are sitting at 23.5 million with a year-to-date budget of 33.9, so 10.3 million under budget. As I mentioned before, there's a timing issue with grant funding received versus budget. So operational grants, we have milestones that haven't yet been reached for Works for Queensland grant funding. Family daycare grants are under budget, but also offset by additional financial assistance grant received. Contributions are under budget due to reduced claims for operations at the Cardwell Sewage Treatment Plant, offset by reduced expenditure. Capital grants are under budget due to grant funding not yet received on incomplete capital projects, which will be completed within the 2021 year, including DRFA works at 6.7 million, which was budgeted but not received in this financial year, Tully Showgrounds at 1.02 mil, TIDS funding for Gundi Industrial upgrade at 619,000, and Dalaki Road at 399,000, Works for Queensland Round 3 at 801,000, and Bulgan Creek Reservoir grant funding at 662,000. Other revenue sources for the end of June total 17.3 million with a budget of 16.6, so 766 ahead of budget. So in here we have our gain on asset disposals as is processed during the capitalisation process. Interest on investments, as we've mentioned over the past few months, is under budget due to reduced interest rates due to the economic conditions that we're facing at the moment. Internal revenues under budget due to reduced plant charges. Other revenues over budget due to increased housing occupancy and rental increases, as well as state government COVID-19 response supplementary payment, family daycare. So it's a change in revenue stream for those payments because of the processes put in place by the government. And that offsets the reduced operational grants. Page 7, employee expenses, including contract labour, total 26.89 million with a year-to-date budget of 26.7 million, so 187,000 behind budget. So contract labour, you'll note, is over budget due to vacant positions that were filled by contract labour throughout the year. Other employee costs include termination payments associated with the restructure. And in addition, labour costs, including contractors, are higher than expected due to capital works projects being delayed due to COVID-19 restrictions, which resulted in labour costs being charged to operational. Materials and services totaled 30.3 million versus a year-to-date budget of 29.8, so 475,000 ahead of budget. The motor vehicle expenditure was over budget due to maintenance and registration costs, higher than we'd budgeted throughout the year. Other services are over budget due to legal expenses, partially offset by legal recoveries. Service contracts are over budget due to waste transfer station contracts and family daycare payments, offset by the increased income. And depreciation, as we've mentioned in previous months, is over budget due to indexation of our water and sewerage assets, and as well as assets that have been capitalised throughout the year. Page 8, number of property searches. So we move into our statistics. So for the month of June, we received 66 applications, which is a 74% increase on June last year and a 57% increase on last month. Underneath that, we have our aged debtors as at the end of June, 0 to 30 days sitting at 1.2 million and 90 days at 178,000. So the quarterly report will come to the next council meeting to expand on that as a confidential item. Page 9, we have number of incoming calls. So for the month of June, we had customer service received 1,959 calls, 189 out of rates and 70 out of after hours, giving us a total of 2,218 phone calls. It's a decrease of 10% from last year in June, but an increase of 20% from May's number of phone calls. Indexation rate history. So we haven't yet received our June CPI figures, haven't been released yet, but once they do, we'll update those. Our measures of financial sustainability. So our operating surplus ratio is at -2% due to the deficit we spoke about earlier. Asset sustainability ratio at 104%, and net financial liabilities ratio at -45%. And also just a reminder, the end of financial year adjustments and asset capitalisations will fluctuate those sustainability measures by the time we've had our financial statements audited. Page 10, requisitions raised. For the month of June, the requisitions raised after invoice, excluding plant, totaled 13%. So still on the slightly high side, but council's working with various areas of the organisation to reduce this. Payments processed for the month of June, total invoices were 2,002, with 94% paid within terms, which is a massive increase on all previous months, which is good to see. And the end of financial year push for payment and invoicing, you can really see reflected in those figures. Page 11, capital work in progress. For the month of June, whole of council totaled 29.9 million, which is the decrease of 16 million from the previous month, which is capitalisations that have been processed. The capital work in progress, 56% of that sitting in construction phase and 25% sitting in capitalisation ready, which equates to about 16.7 million in construction and $7.6 million in capitalisation ready. Page 12 is our capital expenditure year to date. So whole of council totaled 48.1 million, with year-to-date commitments at the 30th of June of 9.6 million, giving us a year-to-date total of 57.7 million versus our full-year budget of 72.36 million. So we're 14.6 million under budget. So including commitments, totaled 80% completion rate of our capital works program, which is generally the target we aim for. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Ms Bradley, councillors? No questions? Okay. Would somebody move the recommendation that the report be received and noted? Moved by Councillor Millwood, seconded by Councillor Haynes. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Ms Bradley.
Thank you all.
Item 3.3, various council policies, and this report will be presented by Ms Johnson.
Good morning, Mr Mayor,
Morning.
councillors.
Ms Johnson.
Governance over CEO policy register, so we can ensure that we're reviewing our policies where required. We also ensure that in terms of council's obligation with the changing legislative and regulatory environment, that we introduce new policies where required. On the agenda today, we have 2 existing policies and 2 new policies. The 2 existing policies are the advertising spending policy and information privacy and confidentiality policy. We are also introducing for council to accept the data breach policy and the compliance policy. With the advertising spending policy, this is simply an annual review. There are no significant changes. In relation to the information privacy and confidentiality policy, this has been updated to include council's obligations under the new Human Rights Act, and governance has also ensured that this has undergone an independent review by the Office of Information Commissioner and includes references by that particular regulatory authority. The data breach policy is new and is particularly important given the changing environment with cybersecurity, and ensures the council has in place processes to deal with any data breach that occurs. In relation to the compliance policy, this sets a high-level strategic approach to how we manage compliance in all our different business units, and it allows for the different business units to set their own compliance strategies within their areas. Do we have any questions?
Any questions for Ms Johnson, councillors? So no. Would somebody move the recommendation that council adopt Policy 1, Advertising Spending, Org 015. 2 is Compliance Org 021. Data Breach Response Plan Policy, FIN 026. And the Information Privacy and Confidentiality Policy, Org 005. Moved by Councillor Barnes, seconded by Councillor Chewy. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Ms Johnson. We move on to item 4, Asset Sustainability, and item 4.1, Delivery Services Update. And this will be delivered by Mr Sanders.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr Mayor. Good morning, councillors.
Mr Sanders.
So firstly, we have the purpose of this report is to provide a monthly update in relation to the status of the Capital Works program that Delivery Services is responsible for. We have continued to work on projects throughout June despite the persistent wet weather, slightly increasing the overall program completion to 73% by project, and currently working on an additional 10% of projects throughout the month of July. There is a detailed summary of the individual projects in attachment 1 by status, but moving from that, some key achievements for the month of June included the continuation of the Clifford Road upgrade project, including the completion of all drainage components, excavation of unsuitable pavement material and completion of sub-base material placement, and completion of all drainage outlet and scour protection. We did also kick off the Meena Creek Road major culvert upgrade project. There was the commencement of the Stodders Hill Transfer Station traffic flow redirection project. We have obviously commenced, or we did commence late June, the Downing Street Sealing Urban Streets project, and we completed the softfall upgrade at Fossey Park on the Esplanade here in Innisfail. So the priorities for the month of July, which we are currently working on, is the finalisation of the Clifford Road upgrade project, recommencement of the Ann and Dalakey Road intersection upgrade, the completion of Transport and Main Road external works culvert program, and the continuation of the Tully High School turnaround sealing to make a safer access there and for parents and school children during drop-offs. Moving into the financial update, as of the 30th of June 2020, the Delivery Services Department had expended approximately $11 million, including commitments of the programmed capital works budget. This equated to approximately 86% of the deliverable program, an improvement of 5% from the month of May. So just moving back to the recommendation that Council receive the report and acknowledge the status of the capital works projects managed by Delivery Services, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillors, any questions for Mr Sanders? Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, Tom, I just wanted, Mr Sanders, sorry, the completion of the Five Ways roundabout. We have a date.
Well, we have largely completed the stormwater part, and we will be moving into the one of our capital projects, which we will be carrying over, is the sealed roads project, where we upgrade the surface as well. So the intent was to be kicking off in July with that project. However, we are slightly behind with the persistent wet weather, so we would be looking into moving into the pavement works there.
Does that also include the roundabout?
There is some improvements there to the curb and the roundabout and the traffic islands. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Millwood. Any further questions, councillors? I'd just like to ask Mr Sanders to give the councillors an update on the Innisfail State College parking upgrade and the safety issues that have been raised by the manager of Transnorth.
Yep.
Please.
Yep, absolutely. So my understanding is that the improvement works that have been completed internally there at the State College are operational. There is some minor signage works to do internally and some education of parents and that, and the school will be facilitating that. We did have a request late last week from some of the users of that area in relation to some concerns, and what we are proposing to do is implement some additional parking restrictions along Flying Fish Point Road to increase visibility, and also restrict parents dropping off outside the school, encouraging them to use the safer access internally. So the school has reported that is working extremely well, and the delays that they were previously experiencing are no longer. So we would like to encourage parents to use that use that internal access for the safety of all school children in that area. So,
Thanks, Mr Sanders. The process is all about education, not enforcement. Queensland Police are involved in the consultation on this matter, and the safety issue was raised by the manager of North. The bus drivers have noticed some issues, and Mr Sanders has worked closely with the principal of the school, local police, the manager of North, and we believe we have a solution to the problem. The upgrade was funded by $122,000 that our local member Shane Knuth was able to secure. So I'd like to acknowledge the work of our local member in securing that funding and fixing up a problem that has been evident for over 10 years and has been a major concern to parents at that interlock where people are entering and exiting the New South Wales State College car park. Any further questions for Mr Sanders? Not. Somebody move that the report be moved, please. Moved and moved by Councillor Millwood, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 4.2, the NDRRA and NRFA monthly progress. Mr Sanders.
thank you. So this report outlines the progress made to date in the restoration program under the Natural Disaster Relief and Recovery Arrangements and Disaster Recovery Funding Arrangements for the month of June. I'm pleased to report that we will be able to summarise that heading and drop the NDRRA moving into the next progress report, as we will have completed the 2008, well, we have completed the 2018 program, which was titled differently. So the progress to date, we haven't seen any changes in approved funding for the reconstruction of central public assets works. However, we have completed the 2018 NDRRA program, which saw the final project, which was pavement repairs on Tully Gorge Road, finalised. We still have two contractors working on approximately $2 million worth of work in relation to the 2019 program, which we have awarded and working on about 50% of that. We will be presenting to Council at the next local government meeting at the consideration of tenders for the balance of those works. There's approximately $5.8 million there. So we look forward to kicking that one off and getting substantially into the 2019 program with an anticipated 80% completion by December, weather permitting. So just in relation to the expenditure to date, we didn't see a huge increase in June just due to the timing of writing this report and the progress claims under the contract. There are detailed financial summaries found on pages 2 and 4 of attachment 1, which you can see our monthly expenses, monthly revenue, and then obviously our cumulative revenue and expenses. From the report, I can also confirm formally that we have received confirmation of the betterment projects listed on page 7 there, which is around $1.2 million worth of work, which has not been procured in any way yet. We have a decision on whether we can deliver those works internally, but there is likely to be further opportunities for contractors to assist us with the delivery of that work. And that's about it. The attachment's fairly detailed. I guess, obviously, getting back to the recommendation that Council acknowledges these results and notes the status of this program. And if you'd like to ask any questions, I'm happy to take any questions in relation to this funding.
Any questions for Mr Sanders, councillors? I'd like to raise one in relation to our bus tour yesterday. We did a tour of Division 2. Councillor Millwood hosted fellow councillors. We dropped into the Alarish Depot. We note that there's been a restructure in terms of bringing your team closer together as a networking arrangement. And could you just give us a briefing on why you've done that, the costs involved and the benefits that will flow to the ratepayers because of that restructure?
Thank you. We put together a bit of a structure realignment back in February within the asset maintenance team. So the asset maintenance team is responsible for all of the civil works, parks and gardens and natural environment. So it's a very diverse team. Since prior to my time, I'm not aware of this team ever being working closely together across those three enterprises, particularly under the one manager as well. And we had some opportunities there to really bring the team together. We also looked at an opportunity where it would reduce travel time for staff and obviously reduce cost in relation to that. And Alarish is a central location. It is the centre of our asset base, which is somewhere between Silkwood and Alarish on value. So in that regard, it makes sense. It's accessible to Mission Beach. You can duck up the Palmerston and get to the back, and you can also obviously get to Cardwell within 45 minutes. So in relation to the cost of that facility, it is minor, and at the moment it is a temporary arrangement to activate the place and see whether it works, and we will be reviewing it. It is considerably less than potentially owning a building long term for the current purpose that we are in there. So we do have up to 12 staff. So that does include our coordinators and our technical officers and our engineer. So really looking at a collaborative approach across our team, and also starting to look at resource levelling and optimising how we deliver our services. We are a very seasonal climate, and when we are looking at our teams, we want to, essentially when it's raining and we can't be building roads and laying pipes and the grass is up around our knees, then we need to be looking at opportunities there where we can share resources between the teams and ultimately deliver better value for the community. So.
Thanks, Mr. Sanders. The feedback from fellow councillors is very supportive of what you've done. The networking of your team. There is a view that we did have silos within our structure. We want to get rid of that, and primarily we want to stop the north-south perspective. And what you've done is you've centralised your asset team around Alarish Depot. We see that nothing but positive, and had our opportunity yesterday to pull up there to view it for the first time. Given we had some feedback and some questions from the community, we left there fully convinced that you've made the right move for the structure going forward. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Sanders? If not, would somebody move the recommendation that Council acknowledges and notes the results of achievements to date and the future projections contained in the report? Moved by Councillor Barnes, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. We now move on to Planning and Regional Development, item 5.1, Delegations Report, and this will be delivered by Mr. Horton. Welcome, Mr. Horton.
Morning, Mr. Mayor and Council, community. Hope everyone's well for this fine Thursday, heading into public holiday on the southern end tomorrow. So, for the Tully Show. Through the chair, yes, we have a delegations report for, and this is for the financial year, I suppose, as well, for the end of June. We'll move forward. On the front page of page 165, I've just added a little bit of commentary into the executive summary there, where it talks about My Council, which we have now available 24/7 to the customer and the community, where you can lodge a CR, lodge a development application online. You can submit a planning and development and building record search. On there as a request, you can track a CR and a development application for our section. Make a submission on a development application on public notification. Conduct a land parcel search, and you can also view the decision notices that are made from delegation and through council as well, Mr. Mayor and Council. So I'll take you to page 167, Council, as you can see there, for the financial year up until the end of June. We're only just a bit short from the year before in planning applications that were dealt with. We ended up with 148, Council, to 155 the year before, which I think is a fair effort in the times we're currently in. Overall for this month, on page 172, Council, you'll see that June wasn't a bad total in building. We had 48 applications decided in that month for $3.5 million worth of work. So on the previous month of May, you'll see there was only 24. So we had a bit of a lull period there in March, April, May, that period, but last month showed some promise, and we had 48 applications to deal with. We've currently got some new dwellings to assess and approve at the current time as well. Overall, on page 173, Council, we can see that overall to this calendar year so far to the end of June, overall the works is 14.4 million. Dwellings are at 6.5 million, Council, so still tracking along nicely there. Overall, our total approvals, which I think is a fair effort for this 6 months, is up at 201 approvals so far for the year and 31 dwellings. So, council, yeah, tracking along, I think, nicely in that area. Hopefully, as I said, we've got a few dwellings that have a bit of interest coming in that area and a lot of quotes from what I hear. Overall, that means we're 29 ahead of last year at the same period in our building applications, which is fine. As you'll see on page 177, council, as you can see with those dwellings, we had that bit of a lull period, so we're about 10 behind on last year on approval process there. So that's page 177. Council, overall, on page 184, overall for the financial year, we ended up with a costing of overall work for this year of 13.9 million for our dwellings. So overall within that financial year is nearly $14 million worth of work dwellings. Overall progressive total, I'm pleased to say that we approved 74 more approvals than what we did the year before in the building area, which I think is a fair effort at 441 approvals. That's not applications that we received, that's applications that we approved. So there's a lot more applications that we had, but they might have been in requests for further information at that time or being dealt with. But 74 more than last year certainly shows that the area is still ticking along, and yeah, hopefully we continue to do that, you know, in the times we're currently in. Council, other than that, everything else seems to be tracking okay. Our building record searches are up on last year at the same time. We've got 160 that we've completed to date. Last year we had 118 at the same time for the calendar year. So there is a reflection that there is movement in the market and people interested in purchasing property around the place. So happy to answer any questions, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Mr. Horton. Any questions for the council, the officer, Councillor Millwood?
Through the chair, it's not a question. I just want to commend Dan and his team on the development of my council, and I think it'll be a valuable asset to our community.
Thank you, Councillor Millwood. In relation to our tour of Division 2 yesterday, Councillor Millwood hosted and took us to the 14 blocks that Council owns at the back of Tully. Councillors have an appetite to auction those blocks and try and get young people to buy them and get ratepayers on our books. Could you give us some vision about what you think they're really worth? Because apparently Councillor Barnes believes that they should sell at the current price, but they're not. They're listed about 50,000. And what do you think is a realistic price to put out there in the community?
Through the chair.
Mr. Goodman.
I think we're going to talk a bit later.
Yeah, perhaps, Mr. Mayor, it might wait till we've received our most recent valuation on those and consider those before we make any commentary on their value.
Fair call. I wasn't aware that you'd got a valuation done, but that's good.
Mr. Singh has some.
Mr. Mayor, through the chair, Mr. Mayor and councillors, we have a CIS schedule on that today after the budget meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Singh. Okay, any questions for Mr. Horton? If not, would somebody move the recommendation that the delegation's report listing statistics and approvals issued by the Planning Services from July 2020 be received and noted? Moved by Councillor Farinelli, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. That concludes the items listed. We now move into any general business. Councillors, any general business? Councillor Chewy.
Good morning all. Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Could I invite Mr. Goodman to the table, please? Morning, Mr. Goodman, and I believe we have some very exciting news for Mission Beach and the whole community regarding our pool at the at Marks Park there. So if you'd like to share some information, please, on the new tenders and their experience. I have some other questions which we can proceed. Go along.
Thank you, Councillor Chewy, through the chair. Yes, councillors, the through a delegation, I've accepted the tender from Trenton Ridge Grimsey of Grimsey Aquatics to manage the Mission Beach Aquatic Facility on Council's behalf, and I will bring a report to Council at the next Council meeting to go through the detail of that. We have awarded that tender through this matter just in a process that will allow for the earliest possible opening of the facility. We would not have been able to get a report to this meeting because it's only just been determined. Grimsey's currently managing the Bowen Pool and have been looking to branch out their operations. Ridge Grimsey is relocated to Mission Beach already in looking to get this pool open. Ridge has competed at international level in swimming, was previously a member of the Australian swim team. He teaches all levels, including juniors, seniors and adult squad, and coach swimmers to compete in national championships. Grimsey's intend to host a multitude of classes at the pool, including Learn to Swim, Mums and Bubs, all level of squad training, aqua aerobics, aqua gentle and deep water aqua. The contract is for 2 years, but there are options to extend that for a further two-year period. So there's potential, if things work well, for Grimsey's to be the manager there for up to 6 years. The contract commenced on the 22nd of July 2020. They're working through the process of recruitment of staff and have committed to opening the pool on Monday 27th of July. There are a few bugs to iron out there and get the pool fully operational, but the feedback so far is they're very confident they will open on 27 July. In the early stages, their priority is to just open the pool for the community, and it will take a little bit of time once they're up and running to introduce all of their classes and get their cafe operation. Opening hours 5:30 to 6:30 Monday to Saturday, and on Sundays 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Saturday is 6:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. So that I'll just do those just to clarify that. It was Monday to Friday, 5:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Saturday, 6:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That'll certainly go through to the end of May. We're working with Grimsey's to, on their winter opening hours, intention is to have the facility open throughout the year, but with some modified hours through winter to reflect the lower number of patrons that we have experienced in the past during that winter operating period.
Just one other question. There's talk around the town that before the pool closed, people had vouchers for swimming lessons that they could present. The concern is, the question is, will they be able to will those vouchers be honoured under the new management?
Yeah, those arrangements were with the previous manager who was managing the pool on council's behalf. We have made arrangements with Grimsey's that they will honour those passes, and we will have to pay for those because that is money that we have already received for those passes. So, yep, those passes that were bought prior to the closure of the Mission Beach Pool will be honoured. There will obviously be a sunset on those. Those people that are concerned, I would just encourage them to just go down and talk to Grimsey's, and we will work. I'm sure the new operator will work through those issues with the community, and we're obviously working with them as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goodman, and your team for this great result, and we look forward to all swimming at the pool very soon. Thank you very much.
Any further questions for Mr. Goodman? Councillor Barnes.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, we've got Mr Goodman with us. Earlier this week, Mr Goodman, we saw the closing date of the expressions of interest of the cleansing of 1 Mile Creek. Could you please give us an update?
Certainly, through the chair, Mr Deputy Mayor, haven't done a detailed assessments of those expressions of interest as yet, but I can confirm that we've got 8 expressions of interest. It's very encouraging to see. A very preliminary analysis of that says that we've got some the sort of businesses that we were hoping that we would like to work with, and they have provided various different methodologies for the removal of silt from 1 Mile Creek. We're very encouraged by that, and we'll work through that expression of interest process and provide council with more detail in the coming weeks.
Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, Mr Goodman, do those votes come in under the guidelines, like under the amount of money that the government has put up for this project?
Through the chair, the expression of interest process does not ask for a hard tender or quote. It asks for to demonstrate that those companies have done this type of work before, and asks to provide indicative costs and back that up with works that they have done and those costs. So they can't just make up costs, they have to back their claims up with work that they have done before. It would be premature to comment on the indicative costs even until we've done a proper assessment of we need to ensure that not just that they can do the work, but they can do it within the legislative environmental constraints that exist on that property. So before I comment on what their indicative prices are and perhaps raise hopes, I want to make sure that we're very comfortable that those companies that have put an expression of interest in that before we put those to council and the community, that they can do that work. We want to make sure that they will be able to deliver.
Any further questions for Mr Goodman? Councillor Pervin.
Mr Goodman, would you be able to give us a progress on the Upper Darragee Road, the realignment of the water main and the removal of the temporary fence? Also with the progress of how the new road is going for Upper Darragee. Are the negotiations with landholders and plans and funding, how is it all going? Where are we at?
Thank you, Councillor Pervin, and through the chairs, I'll try to tick off those number of questions, and if I don't address them all, just ask me again, because I do have an answer for all of them. The temporary relocation of the water main has been complete, and I've had some discussions with the delivery services team this week, and the expectation or the plan is that there would be some shoulder widening on Upper Darragee Road completed next week. All of that is weather dependent, of course, but and that would facilitate 2-lane traffic, one lane being sealed and one lane being unsealed. That would not mean the removal of the temporary fence, but it would allow us to move the road alignment further to the north to facilitate 2-lane traffic. So a best case scenario is we will be able to remove the stoplights on Upper Darragee Road next week, if not sometime very soon after that would be my expectation. With regard the more long-term solution to Upper Darragee Road, Negotiations have been progressive. We have 4 landowners to deal with our intended relocation further to the north of Upper Darragee Road. 3 of those landowners we have completed negotiations with and resolved to acquire the necessary land. One landowner has provided objection to that compulsory acquisition process. On the 23rd of October, I heard that objection. I've actually got a draft response to that objection. It's an objection report, and we will provide a full report to council at the next meeting for you to consider, so that we can progress that resumption. I can say that the matters, we're comfortable that the matters raised in that objection are matters that were considered in our selection of the solution to Upper Darragee Road, and so I won't provide too much detail because there will be a full report coming to the next council meeting. The process following that, if council accepts our report, would be then to provide that documentation to the ministers so that that compulsory acquisition process can proceed. It is very difficult. I think if the next question is when will that happen, there's not a very fixed process, and then it will depend largely on how quickly the minister processes that application. Possibly October might be a realistic, October, November might be a realistic scenario for when we would have access to that land, but there's still a process to go through in terms of this compulsory acquisition. We have to provide, we have to consider the issues raised in the objection process properly. There was one other thing in terms of funding. Funding has been secured through the DRF disaster relief funding arrangements for that project, which includes the moving of the water main and the acquisition of land. Fortunately, that is a project that will be, we have an expectation that will be fully externally funded.
Thanks, Mr. Goodman, for your time.
Any further questions for Mr. Goodman? Councillor Barnes.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Goodman, just an update on the Tully Grandstand, field and lighting, etc.
Through the chair, I think, Mr. Deputy Mayor, you're alluding to some of the damage that's occurred to the field. We, during the construction, and certainly acknowledge that there needs to be some work done on that field. The contractor has started doing some repairs there. We will engage with a specialist turf consultant to come down and have a look at that in the next week or two to make sure that the work that they've done is appropriate, because I'm well aware that Tully Rugby League certainly has ambitions of hosting some games there at the end of August. I would say it's not uncommon at this time of the year, if the Tully show did happen, for there to be some pretty serious damage to that field, and it's not uncommon to have to do some pretty serious repairs to that field and get it functional for touch and rugby league and all the other uses of that field. But we're well aware there has been some significant damage, and we're working, contractors already undertaken some work. We'll consult with some experts and make sure that it's as good as it can be if Tully Rugby League can pull off what they're trying to do and to get some events happening at that field.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Any further questions for Mr. Goodman? Okay, if there's no further general business, oh, sorry. Yep, Councillor Farinelli.
Mr. Mayor, I'm in receipt of a letter from the Australian Sugar Industry Museum that they've asked me to table at this meeting on their behalf. Dear Kylie, thank you for bringing Cassowary Coast Regional councillors to the Australian Sugar Industry Museum for a visit on the 2nd of July 2020. As mentioned on the day, the Australian Sugar Industry Museum would like to propose that the Golden Eye Visitor Information Centre be relocated to the Sugar Museum should the council be seeking an alternative to the caravan situated in Innisfail. Currently, the Australian Sugar Industry Museum is an information centre with white eye status. We are already talking to tourists and providing pamphlets of local tourist destinations. Our centre offers an experience as well as information, a massive car park, cafe, post office, gallery and washroom facilities. Our museum is run by a wonderful group of volunteers which will complement the volunteers and staff you currently have running the Innisfail visitor van. Please present this proposal letter, so that's what I'm doing, and just state that they would invite Cassowary Coast Regional Council to have discussions with them regarding this proposal and future potential for the centre to become yellow eye status and become for information. And the councillors saw what a wonderful centre it was when we visited there. It's just an option, basically, if we're looking at the eye just being, I think, potentially out on the road and attending events outside the region to sort of help that with that destination marketing of the region. It would be great, I think, to have a standalone information offered within the region, and I think it's a great option at the moment. We don't have the money to put into a new centre. We've got one there being run by a great group of volunteers, and I believe it would be quite an easy transition to have that yellow eye put there. So I table that letter. I'll also circulate a copy of that to all of the councillors for them to see, and if we could have start having some discussions with the centre.
Mr. Sadler.
Through the chair, Councillor Farinelli, we'll take that submission on. We know how great a job that the Australian Sugar Museum does in relation to tourism and a destination piece for our community. As council does know, in our operational plan we do have a visitor information centre strategy review. I think it's item 1.2.3. I would ask that we'll take that submission on board, but would ask council that we do that strategy review with industry and then work out what the best approach is. So we'll definitely take that on board and definitely work with the Sugar Museum in relation to getting further information if required.
Thanks, Mr. Sadler. Councillor Purvin.
Yeah, just on visitor information centres, I'd also like to put forward if we could have a bit of a discussion with the TCT TRM in relation to possibly putting the visitor information centre at the conservatorium. It's a council-owned building. We've got parking there. We've got Hadrill Park about to go ahead in the next 12 months. We have got the caravan park we own ourselves next door. I think it's a great location. Some constituents of the Shire have put it forward to me. I know previous director of this council had done some work on it. I would like to put that forward and see how we can go there, get a bit of a study, pricing, costing, those sorts of things.
Thanks, Councillor Purvin. I'll accept both those submissions and we'll have a CIS later. And as Mr. Sadler has highlighted, we do have a strategy going forward and we will consult with the wider community and TCT, of course.
Just further to that, I actually really like that idea myself, and that's something I
I I would be supporting as well with the con. Just makes sense, really. To me, though, that's something that's probably a little bit of a distance away, and that's why I basically just tabling this on their behalf, and just the fact that it's something that's there and pretty much already operating. So, but totally support that as well, Councillor Purvin.
Well, thank you, Councillor Farinelli and Councillor Purvin. Both submissions will be accepted and into our minutes, and they'll be used in further discussion in our CIS and with the wider community.
Just one more item. Just thanking Councillor Millwood for her tour yesterday. It was absolutely fantastic, and I got to eat lots of chocolate, which made it even better. It was fantastic. In the last few weeks, I've been getting around the region, and especially within our tours that we're doing, which have been quite well received by the community. And then Councillor Baines and I visited with Ms Cunningham at Violets and Lace Nursery also earlier this week, and there's some great ideas out there in the community with regards to potential tourism opportunities, and a lot of what I'm hearing is around that nature tourism, ecotourism, and the fact that we're sitting within a veritable food bowl, which is this region. So really exciting seeing what's out there, hearing the ideas of the people who've basically put us into these roles to make decisions and to get it out there. And it's very exciting to see what is available in this region, and to see what the owners of Charlie's Chocolate have got available down there in Mission Beach, and that tree to bar is just fantastic, and they really are leading the way. And we're so fortunate to have something like that in this region, where you can see the cacao growing on the trees, and then having that go through the manufacturing process and put into a chocolate bar that we then got to sit and eat. So it was absolutely fantastic, and I'm just so excited about the future for this region in tourism, and being able to use the challenges that COVID's given us to really promote the region, and all these natural resources we have under our feet that make the Cassowary Coast so unique.
Thanks, Councillor Farinelli. Any further general business, councillors? Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Councillor Baines. That's okay. I know it becomes hard. We blend in. Barry and I both being the best looking men in the room. So, Mr Mayor, more an information piece for the general public, and I'd like to encourage all council staff and councillors. Tomorrow is Pyjama Day, National Pyjama Day, and I'd like to encourage everyone in the community as well as within the organisation. There's a photo opportunity at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning on the steps of the Innisfail Post Office. So I'd love to see everyone there in their favourite jams and help us support this fantastic cause that goes towards cancer research. Just an open invitation to everyone, Mr Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Baines. Any further general business, councillors? If not, that's the close of the first section of the meeting. Would somebody move that we go into committee, please, for the confidential items? Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Would somebody move that we go back into open committee? Moved by councillor Haynes, seconded by councillor Farinelli. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.1, the regional bitumen reseal. This report will be presented by Ms Perini.
Thank you. So this report is in relation to the 2020-21 Regional Bitumen Reseal Program. Council undertakes the annual bitumen reseal program in order to maintain the road network. 5 submissions were received through the procurement process through F&Q Rock, and these were evaluated by the Project Steering Committee, which included officers from each participating council. RPQ is the recommended submission, and they are highly regarded with their contract references from Townsville and Sunshine Coast councils. So the recommendation for this report is that Council awards the contract to the 2020-21 Regional Bitumen Reseal Program to RPQ, with the option to go for a further 2 years down the track. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Ms Perini, councillors, on that report? If not, would somebody move the recommendation 1 and 2 in relation to that tender? Moved by councillor Millwood, seconded by councillor Barnes. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to item 7.2, the cyber security positioning, and Mr Wilson will present this report.
Through the chair. Morning, councillors.
Good morning.
I should know that. To provide council an update as to where we are with our program of works and in regards to where the industry is moving and the changes that are in the industry. Is there any questions?
Any questions for the officer on this recommendation? It's moved by councillor Farinelli, seconded by councillor Chewy. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr Wilson. We now move on to item 7.3, Technology One software. Mr Wilson, present this report.
Through the chair, the program of works to move Technology One, our business management system, to the cloud and provide enhanced security and mobility is continuing. In the 4 weeks, we have made significant progress in regards to the project of works. I therefore would request that the information that we've provided be accepted and updates be put on a timely manner in regards to the program.
Any questions for Mr Wilson on this report? Moved by councillor Farinelli, seconded by councillor Millwood. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. And the final report is 7.4, the late confidential report, and Mr Vick will present this one. Welcome, Mr Vick.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, just here to present the sole specialised and confidential report, the revised edition of that from line 65 to 90. Any questions with regard?
Any questions for Mr Vick on this recommendation? If not, would somebody move that item 1 and 2 in the recommendation be accepted? Moved by councillor Millwood, seconded by councillor Chewy. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillors, staff, that brings and those watching via live streaming, that brings our meeting to a close. Thank you very much.